Assemblymember James Ramos joining us live this morning to talk about AB 2112, which would create a statewide Office of Suicide Prevention. Welcome back to Fox 40 News at 11.
Thank you, and thank you for taking interest in this topic.
Another topic we're taking interest in, we're talking about mental stress caused by the coronavirus, but there's a situation happening at the Capitol. We brought its breaking news. Given the fact that there seems to be a positive test in the Senate, they've shut down operations. Sort of, what's the mood there?
So we're getting the information probably at the same timing as you are. Certainly the Senate has their different protocols. Here in the Assembly, we continue to follow our safety procedures and our safety protocols to continue to move forward and carry out the bill loads that we have. We have not, on the Assembly side, deviated away from that at this point.
All righty. Well, there are a lot of groups, NAMI, for instance, that focus on mental illness, reducing stigma, and helping people through. Why does the state need an office?
It's very important to have an office, because then the message starts to translate from the top down that this is a much needed area. Office of Suicide Prevention, suicide resources that need to be worked in concordance with the local regions to make sure those resources are getting out. And when we start to talk about, even now, right, we talked just a few seconds ago about impact of COVID and the stress that's there. If someone's looking for those resources that are out there, we need to make sure that it's there. And when we talk about moving the economy forward, we can't start talking about that without addressing the mental health issues that are facing business owners that are going through high levels of stress, those that are feeling isolated, going through high levels of stress. Mental health is a component, and the suicide prevention is something that now this Office of Suicide Prevention would be able to work on.
And aside from just messaging, what is it that the state can do that the other groups maybe are partially doing or can't do?
So one of the things that this bill will do is being able to create that Office of Suicide Prevention allows for the data and demographics to come forward of groups that have a high rate of suicide. Native American youth have had a high rate of suicide, higher than any other peers that are out there, as well as the LGBTQ community, veterans, firefighters. These are areas that we need to make sure that we're getting the data on and making sure there's flexibility to dive into those populations to bring those resources to. That's what this Office of Suicide Prevention can do, focus on those demographics and those groups that drastically need the resources directed towards them.
As you just mentioned, veterans, people of color, children, and adolescents are the groups, some of the groups you feel aren't getting enough attention when it comes to this issue. Suicide, actually the second leading cause of death among young people ages 15 to 24 in the U.S. That just is a staggering statistic.
It is a staggering statistic, and these statistics were there prior to the onslaught of COVID-19 and the pandemic. This is a very real issue. What has happened over the past is when you start to talk about suicide, prevention, mental health, a lot of people have disengaged from that conversation. We can no longer do that. We need to make sure that we're harnessing what's happening to people in the state of California and the United States when they're dealing with a suicide, when they're dealing with mental health issues. These are topics that we need to start to address as elected leaders and to bring resources to those that are suffering. You just brought up those statistics from 15 to 20-year-olds. The youngest population of our youth are facing things today, and we owe it to them to get those resources to them so that they can continue to move forward in their lives.
All righty, and just quickly before we run out of time, what is the next step for this bill?
So the next step for this bill is to get it off the Senate floor and to the governor for signing. So we're being encouraged to start that campaign now. Call the governor's office, let the governor know that this is much needed in the state of California. Once it gets to his desk, we would encourage him to sign this bill.
All righty. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Assembly Member. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.